Sometimes a person has an emergency and he has to do something that doesn't look right. For instance, he has to cut the line to the bridge. There's a lot of cars waiting. He goes ahead of everybody. Why? Sometimes, let's say his wife is in labor, he's in a rush for something that he really doesn't have the time to wait that line, and things along that as well. How do we view such a thing? Is it better that people should not see that he's Jewish and take off his kippah, or keep the kippah on and say that I can't violate isur by taking off the kippah? Now, is taking off a kippah a violation of anything? We need to know that in Zman Kadmon, in the time of the Gemara, most of the poskim learned it was midat chasidut to have the yarmulke on the head, because we found few places that Chazal indicated in such wording that it was midat chasidut and not meikar adin. But Shulchan Aruch was posek such a thing la'alacha in Siman Bet, and he says a person should not walk arba amot begilui rosh. Lo yelech arba amot begilui rosh mipnei kvod hashchina. One is not allowed to walk 6 feet without a head covering. Then later on, the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tzadik Aleph says that יש אומרים שאסור להזכיר את השם או להיכנס לבית הכיסא בגילוי הראש. One is not allowed, or לבית הכנסת בגילוי הראש. One is not allowed to walk into the shul or say some divrei Torah or Hashem's name without a head covering. That is even less than 4 amot. Just a person sitting down is not allowed to do such a thing. Now, the Mishnah Berurah says that there is midat chasidut afilu pachot me-4 amot. We see clearly that 4 amot is not anymore midat chasidut according to the Mishnah Berurah. Chacham Ovadia argues, he says that the fact that it says over here in the halacha, lo elech 4 amot begilui rosh, and before that it starts, asur lilech bekoma skufa, so we see it, so walking bekoma skufa, it says asur, and for walking without a yarmulke, it says lo yelech, so it's less. He wants to say that it's midat chasidut as well in the Shulchan Aruch. But however it is, there is a machloket over here. What's the obligation we have today to put a yarmulke? The Marshal in Yam Shel Shlomo, as brings him down in the beginning of Ilchot Tzitzit, says that really he didn't find any isur of not wearing a kippah. A person doesn't need to wear a kippah. It just says that he can't be matir such a thing because it looks like kalut upritzut rosh, pritzut vekalut rosh, which means it's not something that a person should do. It shows a little bit that a person is a little bit kal, is a little bit not with yirat shamayim. The Taz disagrees with him over there, and he says that it's meikar adin, and the reason is because the goyim, when they come into place of prayer, or whenever they reach any place of meeting, they take off their hat, and therefore we can't do that because there's a isur of b'chukoteim lo telechu. Whatever the goyim do as something that they makpid to do, not that they do it because they're hot or anything like that. Rather, that is the anhaga. This is the musei goyim. This is how they behave. This is how they conduct their life, and therefore, when they reach a place, they take off the hat as a show of respect or whatever the goyim have in mind to do that. We can't do the same, and it's a violation of Torah. This is how the Taz says. Now today, Moshe Feinstein says, and also Rav Eliashiv, that today, since the goyim are not makpid to do that anymore, and therefore there's no isur of lifnei iver lo titen mikshol. Chacham Ovadia says that walking with a kippah today is meikar adin, because that is what shows the difference between somebody who keeps Torah and doesn't keep Torah. And since you're not allowed to show yourself as a person that violates the Torah, doesn't keep the Torah, a person that's a chiloni, that is not keeping Torah mitzvot, therefore one must walk with a kippah, because that is what indicates and what shows about him that he keeps Torah and mitzvot. So now, what would happen when you're on a line and you have to cut the line because your wife is in labor and you're not going to make it on time? If you just going to stand on line and there's a long line, you can just go ahead and cut everybody. So you have to do that because you don't have another choice. But what should you do with the kippah? Is it better to take it off, or it's better to keep it on? Moshe Feinstein learns in the halacha a couple of places, things that seems to contradict each other, and maybe we can learn from here to what we want to say today. He's talking about people that violated the Torah, religious people. They keep normally the Torah, but they do over here a certain violation. Like for instance, one Tshuva, Rav Moshe in Yoreh De'ah Bet Lamed Gimel, writes that there are people that sometimes go dancing, boys and girls together, and this is a violation of the Torah. It's pritzut, it's something that one definitely shouldn't do. It's a איסור חמור ביותר. בדבר אלו שהולכים למקום שעושים ענייני פריצות בריקודים של בחורים ובתולות יחד, יש שגם הם עצמם עוברים על איסור פריצות. Sometimes they go over there just to watch, sometimes they go over there to do that as well. אף שבשאר מצוות התורה הם נזהרים והולכים מכוסים ראשיהם בימקה. They walk with a yarmulke, but over here they fall into that עבירה. אם יש לומר להם שהם הולכים לשם, וכל שכן הם מרקדים, שיסירו הימיקה, וילכו בגילוי הראש, כדי שלא יאמרו הרואים שריקוד כזה מותר. Is it better that they should take off the yarmulke, so people would not say that, look, he's a religious Jew, and obviously it's okay to dance like that, because otherwise what would he do over here? So the Moshe writes the following, פשוט לעניות דעתי, שאין לומר להם לעבור עוד איסור. A person should not tell them to violate another issur of taking off the yarmulke, although they're violating a terrible thing, but it's better to keep the yarmulke on than to take it off. אף רק איסור מנהג חשוב ככיסוי הראש, אף שלדעת האומר יהיה מזה תועלת, שמקום מקום אין לומר לאדם שעבור עוד איסור, the person should not tell somebody else to take off the yarmulke, because you're asking him to violate another issur, and that is not something that you should do. Secondly, he says, גם עצם הדבר הוא טעות. The whole idea is a mistake, because people that's going to see him, they know him probably, some people there know him from the neighborhood, and they know he's a religious Jew. Now they're going to see him with that yarmulke doing such a terrible thing, so they would say not only that it's mutar to do those dancings, but it's also allowed not to walk with a yarmulke. גם עצם הדבר הוא טעות, אם יודעים אותו לאיש שומר שבת ומניח תפילין, הוא מתפלל ויראו שהולך בגילוי הראש למקומות הפריצות, ילמדו גם זה שאין לחוס שרוצים לרקד ושאר ענייני פריצות, גם לכיסוי הראש. So there's not going to be any help and any תועלת, any benefit from taking off the yarmulke. וזה ודאי שאסור להשיג טעם לעבור על איסור קל. Now, this is one tshuva. Another tshuva in Orach Chaim Bet, he writes, Orach Chaim Bet, Tzadik Hey, he writes the following, בדבר כניסה לטיטר ולמוvies. If a person goes to the theaters to watch movies, which is definitely a davar asur, harei u davar asur, he says. One should not go there. But if you see such a person, is it better to take off the yarmulke or not? He says, איך שייך שיתירו לו להסיר את כובעו להיות בגילוי הראש ויוסיף עוד חטא על חטאו? How is it possible that we should tell him to take off the yarmulke and he's going to make a second violation? ואם השאלה באחד שתקף יצרו ללך שם ולא ישמע שלא ילך, if a person really is יצר הרע got over him and he's not going to listen to us not to go, so therefore there is a svara to say, אולי טוב שיסיר כובעו, maybe it's better that he should take off the head, ולא יחילו לשם, משום שלא יהודי, לא ידעו שהוא יהודי שומר תורה. Maybe it's better that he should take off the yarmulke and the head, so people would not know that he's a Jew that keeps Torah. And he says that this is a svara gdola, אבל רק למכוון לשם שמיים. This would be a correct way of thinking, but only if you really, that's the approach, that he does it לשם שמיים. Just the fact is that somebody that goes to such a place, and the יצר הרע gets over him, it's hard to say that he's going to do לשם שמיים. אבל כיוון שלחוק לומר שיש שתוקף יצרו עליו יכוון לשם שמיים, הרי כוונתו באמת רק לזלזל בעוד דבר, גם באיסור גילוי הראש, לכן אין להתיר. So, we have over here a contradiction. In one place, Moshe told us that people that do this big violation of dancing together should not take off the yarmulke. It's asur. How could you tell them to make a second violation? And then another tshuva, Moshe writes that in a place that he goes to theaters, it's better to take off the yarmulke, so it's not going to look like a Jew, and that's only going to work if he's doing it l'shem shamayim. The fact is that people don't do it l'shem shamayim if they go to such a place. It says it's better not to do it, a person should not do it. But we see that if a person would mean l'shem shamayim, it would be mutar to take off the yarmulke. The other tshuva, I said it's asur. How do you work these two things together? I think when you read Rav Moshe precisely and you medayek in the words, Rav Moshe is talking about two different scenarios. In the scenario that people go to dance together, this is, and it keeps explaining it, that it's in a place that people know him. If people know him, they know him from the neighborhood. They know he's Jewish and he's Shomer Torah and he's Shomer Shabbat and he's Ochel Kashrut, as he explains over there. And therefore, since they know him, so now they see that he took off the yarmulke. That's a terrible thing. They'll also understand and learn from him that one can take off the yarmulke when he does those isurim. But in the second tshuva, where Moshe speaks about going to theaters, over there, people don't know he's Jewish at all. He says, "Lo yeh chilul Hashem mishum shelo yedu shu Yehudi shomer Torah." People would not know that he's Jewish and he's not shomer Torah. Nobody would know anything about him. So then there's a svara to take off the yarmulke in such a place. So therefore, could be that would answer our question. When a person needs to cut the line, and if he has a beard and he has an appearance of a Jew, taking off the yarmulke is not going to do anything. Of course, you're not going to tell him that. But if he doesn't look like a Jew, is clean shaven, let's say, and he doesn't have such an appearance that anybody would see right away that is Jewish, so maybe the fact that he's doing it, and he's doing it for the right reasons, he needs to rush to the hospital, and he's taken off Leshem Shamayim, as Rav Moshe says over here, if a person is mechaven Leshem Shamayim, that would be okay. And this person is a Shomer Torah mitzvot, is a God-fearing Jew, so therefore definitely, according to that, comes out that a person should take off the yarmulke. Maybe it's the dim to be mekel with that. We can add the fact that Rav Moshe writes another tshuva in Orach Chaim Daled, the second tshuva he writes, a question to somebody that wanted to know, he's going to work at a place that they tell him that he can only work there if he takes off the yarmulke, he has to stay begilui rosh without any head covering. And he writes that nira le'aniyut da'ati shemutar. He writes that it's allowed if a person needs it for his job, otherwise he's not going to have another job. So it's allowed. Why? Because first of all, gilui rosh, Rak midat chasidut, as we explained before, that many poskim hold it's only midat chasidut in Islam ikar adin, and therefore, in order to have midat chasidut, definitely one, he says, should not have a loss of money. And over here, it's much more than a loss of money. He's not going to have a job. He's not going to be able to provide himself. And even a regular honest is only up to chomesh, לא צריך לבזבז יותר מחומש מנכסיו על המצווה. And therefore, all you have to spend is up to a chomesh on the mitzvah. And honest mammon would be the same thing. So he writes over here that for that reason, one is allowed, if he's forced and he has no other choice, go to work at such a place, although he's going to be without a head covering. So we see that for such important reasons, you do apply such a halacha. Also, we have in the Sha'arei Tshuva, in Siman Bet, he brings down, in the name of the Birkat Shmuel, he writes over here like this. אסור ללך, מה שאסור ללך ד' אמות בגילוי הראש, לאו דווקא הליכה, אלא אפילו בעמידה וישיבה צריך להיזהר. That's how he starts. And then he says that לצורך, if a person has a real need, נראה שמתוך מעשיו שעושה כדי להכר וכדומה, שרי. If a person, let's say, has to go to swim in the ocean, does he need to wear the yarmulke? He says no. Why? Because since you have a tzorech over here, so therefore you're allowed to go without a yarmulke into the ocean. Afilu midat chasidut en bo, he writes. And therefore, maybe over here by us also, it's a tzorech. Since it's a tzorech, it's a real need, you would have another leniency. Also, the Marshal, in the same tshuva we mentioned before, Siman Ayin Dalet, he writes that mi'ikar adin, it's enough that you have a roof over your head as a yarmulke, which means when did Chazal require you to have a head covering? When you go outside. But when you're not outside, you're in a place indoor, you don't have to have, because the roof itself indicates that you have something on top of you. So although la'alacha we're not posek like him, but these are all tzirufim la'akel. Comes out like this: if a person really needs to do such a thing, a person needs to think and see what's the least is going to cause chilul Hashem. If that's going to cause chilul Hashem, that he takes it off and it's going to be worse, that people might know him, then the poskim, Rav Elyashiv brings like this: if somebody might know who he is by cutting, and now they see he also doesn't have a yarmulke, it's a double chilul Hashem. But if nobody would know him, or it's very unlikely, and he's doing the right thing by cutting the line or doing something like that when he has to do, could be with all the tzirufim over here that we said, it's better to do such a thing. Obviously, if one has some kind of cap or something, that a cup that he could wear on the hat or something like that, that would be much better without taking off the yarmulke, and with that he would save all the questions we had right now.